have our work cut out for us today, kind of know what we got to do. Today we are reviewing for our first test, which is next class. First test is Wednesday. And as I may have mentioned before, on the first test, you're going to be asked to spell and also analyze secondary chords, secondary dominants, and secondary leading tone chords. You will be asked to find the 5 closely related keys to a couple given keys. You'll be asked to write a pivot chord chart between 2 keys that I give you. You'll be asked to do some analysis of passages, one of which is going to modulate, and so you'll need to find the signal chord, and then you'll need to find the pivot chord, and analyze the modulation like we've been doing in class. And I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I may ask you some short questions, a short question or two about it. Tell me what all the signal pitches are between these 2 keys if I was modulating from key 1 to key 2. Because we went over that, finding the signal pitches. And there will be some part writing. Don't let me forget that, part writing. All right, so in order to get started today, let's start out by looking at a chromatic chord in the treble clef. And let's say you were faced with a chord like this on the test. In fact, this is not the first problem, but let's say this was the first problem on the test. And you were asked to analyze that chord in C major, how it functions in C major. So we have see the chromatic pitch, which means it doesn't normally belong in C major. But we have ways to explain chromatic chords now, either as a secondary dominant or a secondary leading tone. First of all, what is the root of that chord? E. Now, how do you tell whether or not that chord is a 5 of something or a 7 of something? You've got to understand its type, its quality by looking at it. Is that a dominant 7th sound or is it a diminished 7th sound? It's a dominant 7th sound. So that means it's going to be like a 5-7 of something, not a 7 diminished of something. You see how that rules that out? Well, you told me the root was E. What inversion is this in? 4-3. So it looks like it's going to be a 5-4-3 of something. Now, since you told me it's a 5 of something, it's a dominant of something, you know that the root is E. What is E the dominant of? A. Yes, good. Go down a 5th. And what Roman numeral would A be in the key of C? 6. In the key of C major, is the 6 lowercase or uppercase? Lowercase. So the correct answer for that analysis is 5-4-3 of a 6 in C major. Let me know if you have questions about this. I got another one of these. Let's go to the key of B minor. And this is the chord I want you to analyze for me. What type of chord is it? Is it diminished or is it So that leads us to think that it's going to be a 7 diminished of something. What inversion is that chord in?
6/5.
Okay, 6/5, I would agree. In fact, this is fully diminished, it's not half diminished. Now, if it's a secondary leading tone chord, that means the root of that chord is the leading tone to the root of the chord. It's a secondary chord of. It's hard to say. What is the root of that chord? E sharp. Go up a half step
F sharp.
from E sharp. Okay.
Sorry.
E sharp, go up a half step and you get the root F sharp. So we're saying that this could be a leading tone chord to a chord whose root is F sharp. And a chord whose root is F sharp in this key is what Roman numeral? 5, yes. And remember, our 5s are always capital. I know last semester we saw a minor 5, but we will hardly ever see that ever again probably. So 5s are always capital. So the correct answer for that analysis is it's a 7 diminished 6/5 of 5. And I think one of the only ways that you can get these straight is, do you know the difference in spelling, or when you look at these chords, you know the difference between a dominant 7th, a major minor 7th, and a diminished 7th. If it's a diminished 7th, it's probably going to be one of these. If it's a dominant 7th chord, then it's going to be a 5 or something. And if you're not quite sure on that, then, let's see, Micah has hours tomorrow, doesn't he? I forget what time it is, but I want to say 2 to 4, but I can't be positive. It is 2 to 4, okay. Any questions about this? All right. Can we go to the test review that you have? And we'll start looking at some of the answers here. First one that you had to spell. Did you calculate the root of B sharp? I hope. Right? What is, again, when we read these symbols, these Roman numerals, what is the root of a 2 chord in B major, and be specific? C sharp. The leading tone to C sharp is a minor second below. A minor second below C sharp is B sharp. Not B natural, not C natural. It's got to be B sharp. Then, can you spell a diminished triad on B sharp? Well, it's all minor thirds. B sharp, D sharp, F sharp. And then put it in first inversion. You see why I do not need a sharp on the D or the F, but I do on the B. The next one is one of these rare secondary chords that requires no accidental. Every now and then you get one, yes.
Wouldn't you need an accidental on the F because it's a leading tone in G minor? Wouldn't you need a natural? Because shouldn't it go up to F sharp or not?
Well, you could put a natural on the F, just to be clear, but technically F sharp is not in the key signature, right? So, I mean, technically this one doesn't require an accidental, but if you want to put the natural on the F, just to be clear that it's not the leading tone, that it's some other note, yeah, that would be fine. The way I calculate this again is I find what is the root of a 3 chord in G minor, and the answer is B flat What is G flat's dominant? You go up a fifth. So then you'll get F as the root. And it looks like I'm being asked to spell a root position 5/7. So F-A-C-E flat is how you spell dominant 7 on F. F-A-C-E flat. Again, there's just a few secondary chords in all of music that don't require accidentals. 98% of them do. But if you know how to spell it and you're thinking right, and you're paying attention to details, then yeah, then this will be one where it doesn't have accidentals because you know how to spell that. The last one up on the top, the root of a 5 chord in C minor, that's what this 5 to the right of the slash is. That is G. So if I'm trying to spell a dominant chord of G, that means my root needs to be D. Right? G up a fifth to find its dominant is D. How do you spell a dominant 7th on D? D, F sharp, A, C. Putting it in first inversion, notice I need 2 accidentals in this one. The sharp on the F, but I also need to naturalize the A, because otherwise it would be A flat, and that's not how you spell D, F sharp, A, C. I understand that spelling these secondary dominants and analyzing them, it takes some concentration. There's a lot of detail. But I know you can do it. And that's just a little part of these chords, and it comes along with theory. When has theory ever not been detail-oriented, though? So. Does anyone have any questions about those? How to spell? Yeah.
Okay, this is the spelling. I was just wondering, why is the C the one that's to the right instead of the
Yeah, again, it's not required to know this, but because the stem direction I would use would be an up stem, then, I guess, how do I say this? The note of the second always needs to be, I forget how I want to say this. The note that's part of the second that needs to be to the right of the stem. In other words, if I put a stem on it, it would be like this. Yeah, whoa, that's pretty nasty. It would not make sense to put the C over on the other side. Yep, I don't take off with that, of course. All right, moving on. How about part writing? I hope for the first example here, the analysis of your opening chord should be a 5/7 of 4. Why is it not 1/7? Because we don't write 1/7s. A 1/7 is always a 5/7 of 4. The C natural makes it a secondary chord. Okay? So I got D, F sharp, A, C, and a 5/7 of 4 should go to a 4. So I'm trying to take it to a G major chord. Now remember the 2 tendency tones we talked about in these secondary dominants. One is the 7th of the chord, which you can see is the C natural. That needs to come down by step, which I took it down to a B. The other is what I call secondary T, or the leading tone to the root of the next chord. Is not F sharp the leading tone to G? Yes. Now, I could have taken the leading tone up, but it's in an inner voice. What did I do instead of taking it up? I frustrated it down because it's in an inner voice. And that allows me to get a complete triad with 2 roots, a third, and a fifth. Yes?
So if we took it up to the G, would that be wrong because we don't have the...
Not necessarily. Did you still double the G or have 2 Gs in the bass?
Yeah,
part?
2 Gs, tenor, bass, shirt, and then the B in the soprano. So if you,
And then a G in the
yeah,
alpha?
so if you triple the root, does it matter if you use a third of the fifth, it's just as long as you.
It sounds like you did it right. If you have an incomplete triad, you want to triple the root
Yeah,
and have a third.
okay,
So you leave out the fifth, you would have no D. in that
okay,
case.
that's, yeah,
Yep, and that would be fine.
okay.
That would be fine. Can you spot the two tendency tones? That's what I'm mostly concerned about, because if you can find those and say, what do I need to do with these tendency tones first? Usually the part right into the next chord, I mean, at least half of it falls into place when you're doing that. The next chord I have is a 7, fully diminished 6/5 of 6. That's how it's spelled. It's a BDF A flat chord. And I know I need to take it to 6. Why? I mean, I know this is a strange chord, and it's just because of the inversion of the first one. Why did I take it to a first inversion 6 and not a root position 6? Because if I took it to a root position 6, I would get parallel fifths or unequal fifths between the bass and the tenor that could not be fixed. See, if I took it to a root position 6, this D would end up having to come down to a C, and then I'd have D A flat going to C G, which is unequal fifths involving the bass. So I gotta take it to a first inversion chord, and that goes back to, it goes back to this chart that we had. Let's see, it was 5, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 4, 2. You know the chart I'm talking about. And this goes to. That's basically it. Anyways, the two tendency tones are all important here. The chord's the 7th is the A flat. Find where that is. It's in the tenor, happens to be, take it down by step. And secondary leading tone happens to be in an outer voice. It's the B natural. That's the leading tone to the root of the C chord we're going to. So that goes up by step. And don't, you might ask me, well, what's proper doubling for a 6/6 chord? Don't worry about it. We would hardly ever write these. I should really change this problem on the review. I would say double whatever facilitates smooth voice reading. Okay, the last one. Did you get a 5, 4, 3 of 5? And that goes to a 5. I guess technically it could go to it could go to a 5, 6 if anyone did that as well. It's a GBDF chord. F is the 7th of the chord, so that comes down by step. It's in the tenor, you can see that. The secondary leading tone, I know it's in an inner voice. This time, though, it helped me just to take it up. I did not have to frustrate it because I wanted to get the root of the chord doubled in my 5 chord. So I have C, E, C, and G for the last one. Will you remember when you part right to look for the two tendency tones? That will help. That will help. Save a lot of points being missed on the test. Any questions about any of these three? Let's do the next, let's do the next section verbally. Out loud. Name the closely related keys to the following. D major. Who can give me the 5 close related keys in any order?
B minor, A major, G major, F sharp minor, E minor.
And E minor, yeah. That's right. So I don't know exactly what order. I think he did B minor, then A major, then G major, then F sharp minor, and E minor. And again, they can be in any order just as long as you have those 5 keys. Okay, the next one, what about the 5 closely related keys to G sharp minor? Is that a real key? Yeah, unfortunately. All right, I'll give you mine in any order. The 5 close related keys are B major, E major, F sharp major, C sharp minor, and D sharp minor. You all have a way or a method to come up with the 5 closely related keys for unit keys. If you need to draw part of a circle of fifths on your test, that's fine. Just remember, drawing diagrams takes a little bit of test time away from the time you have. That's all I'm saying. And finally, the 5 closely related keys to E flat major. Anybody want to take a stab at these? Okay.
C minor, A flat major, E flat major, F minor, G minor.
That's right. C minor, A flat major, B flat major, F minor, and G minor. In any order. Okay. Now, the next section asks us to indicate in the box below all of the common chords between A minor and E minor. This one, yeah, this one I can probably just do on the board, just to go through the process again. A minor and E minor. We list all of the Roman numerals according to their correct type on each scale degree. And for minor keys, we use the natural form of the minor to get our triad types. So I get minor 1, I get diminished 2, major 3, minor 4, minor 5 in the pivot chord chart, capital 6, and capital 7. And again, whenever you list the triads for minor keys in the pivot chord chart, they'll always be of this type. The main thing about a pivot chord chart, when I go to the new key, the question is, under which chord of A minor do I list the 1 in E minor? If you don't get this lined up correctly, then the pivot chord chart is useless. You know?
5.
Yeah. I have to line the chords up for E minor so that they share the same root as the chord vertically above them in the A minor key. So a 1 chord in E minor has a root of E, so it needs to be listed right here, right? Because a 5 chord in A minor has a root of E. And that's going to get the appropriate line up so you can see which ones are possible and which ones are impossible pivot chords. So once you get that, continue on. 2 is diminished, 3 is major, 4 is minor, 5 is minor, 6 is major, and 7 is major. Now, it's important to remember to cross out only the columns that would be impossible pivot chords or common chords between the 2 keys. And those are the columns where the triads are of different type. Those columns. So I would cross out this column, right? Because those chords are, one's diminished and one's minor, so that's an impossible common chord between the 2 keys. I'll cross out this column. And it looks like I'll cross out this column. Now, what am I supposed to do? Circle the best or the smoothest pivot choice. Don't cross out the other columns. Leave them alone because they are technically, potentially common chords between the 2 keys. It's just that one of these chords, one of these columns will work smoother than the others. I would probably accept 2 answers as correct for this one, but I just ask you to circle one and only one pair. Which one did you circle? Which one? Yeah, I circled this one as no. I stay away from this one because it's got a 5 in it, that makes a poor pivot chord. And this one has a 7 in it, which generally makes a poor pivot chord as well. Okay. Questions about how to write a pivot chord chart?
I'm just gonna, so I would press the letters and just do some like learning rules just to make sure that we all have that.
You mean like the roots of the chord?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's perfect. You bet. Okay, yeah, we can go to the next page. I'm going to give you just something that's not on the review sheet. This is just a mock or a fake progression. I mean, it's real, but I'm not going to play it. I just want to see if you can tell me what I need to know based on this analysis. And there's some more chords which I don't really need. All right. Now, F major modulating to A minor. There's the pivot chord. Which one is the signal chord? That's right. This one right here. This chord, if we wrote it out in actual music, it would need to contain one or more signals that we know exist between F major and A minor. Well, let me ask you this. There are 2 pitches in the 5-6-5 chord that signal the shift to A minor. What are those 2 signal pitches? Say one of them for me.
G sharp.
G sharp is one of them. There's another one also in that chord.
B flat.
B what?
B flat.
Not B flat. B natural. B natural. What is the difference between the 2 key signatures? Well, F major has B flat, but we're going to A minor. A minor does not have a B flat. So one of the pitches we would see would be the B natural to tell us we're not in F anymore, but we're in A. That's the difference between the 2 key signatures. And the G sharp comes about because that's T of the new key, which is a minor key. And this chord, 5-6-5, has all of those, both of those signals. Questions? What about well, we just did these 2 keys. That was in the pivot chord chart. Oh well. What if I asked you to tell me what all signal pitches you would find between going from an old key of A minor to the new key of E minor? What would be one of them?
Key naturals? Key natural?
G natural. That's right. G natural is the absence of T in the old key, or the lowering of T in the old key, which makes Te of the old key would appear in this key, but not in this key. Most likely.
F sharp.
Okay, F sharp, that's the difference between the 2 key signatures. E minor has an F sharp. A minor does not in its key signature. And then there's one more. It's going to be T of the new key.
G sharp.
D sharp. D is in dog. Those are all 3 signal pitches that would alert us that music has gone to E minor and left the old key of A minor. actually have a lot of signal pitch review in this particular review. That's why I wanted to do some of it here. Does anyone have questions about how to find those? Remember, there's always going to be between 1 and 3 signal pitches between two closely related keys when they're modulating. Can we go to the next page of your review now? What is it, section 4? The analysis. You notice how the instructions say that these passages may or may not modulate? What is the clue for you? What tips you off to let you know which ones of these passages modulate and which do not? Yeah, where it says starts in such and such a key. That's your clue that, hey, this passage modulates, it does not end in that key. So that means the first example, the Handel example, that one modulates. It starts in G minor. Can anyone tell me what the final key is by the end? D minor, yeah. And where do you look for that? How do you know? Where's a good place to look for the new key? Yeah, at the cadence, right at the end. Mm-hmm. And I see there's an A major chord going to D minor, which is like 5-1 in the new key. Let me play this quickly for you. So we're in G minor. We've got Handel's nice 5-6. Then it goes to 7 diminished 7. Goes to G minor. I'm sorry. What am I doing wrong here? Let me play the last 3 bars for you one more time to hear how we get out of G minor. What was your signal? What signal pitch did you find that told you where the signal chord was? Which one? The F sharp?
F natural and the 4th natural.
Oh, the F natural? Okay, that's a definite signal. I see another signal though that comes before
C
it.
sharp in the chord before.
Yeah, do you see the chord, the first chord with a C sharp in the top voice? That's the first signal I run into when I'm going to D minor. So what I did was I said that's my signal chord. That's the first chord completely in the new key of D minor. And I analyzed that one with the C sharp in D minor. I analyzed it as a triad, 7 diminished 6. Where's the pivot chord then found typically? The chord before. And you see how that G minor triad fits perfectly in G minor and in D minor at the same time. At the same time. I understand F natural is a signal. I agree. But there happens to be a signal in the chord prior to that we encounter. That's the first one we encounter. So I'll choose that chord as my signal chord right here. And then back up one chord from there, and I find the smooth pivot, smooth common chord between the two keys. Yeah.
I noticed that it says, I know it starts in G minor, but why does it only have 1 flat?
Yeah, and the reason for that is because that this is just excerpted out of the middle of this piece somewhere. And so maybe the original key of the piece was D minor, and somewhere before this, Handel already modulated to G minor.
Alright.
And you see how we don't change the key signatures when we modulate? So this is coming in G minor, excuse me. It looks like he maybe goes back to the original key that the piece may have been written in. I'd have to look at the full score to see. But that's a good question. Yeah. Okay, going to the next one. Does this passage modulate?
E.
Yes, and it does because it says starts in B flat major. Starts in B flat major. You certainly do not end in B flat major. Okay, what's the second key based on the cadence?
C minor.
C minor. Those two keys are close related. B flat major is close related to C minor. What is the first area or signal pitch / signal chord we encounter?
A flat.
Yeah, the A flat in the bass. You could also say that
B natural.
that B natural in the same chord. Both of those are signal pitches to lead us to C minor. So if that's the signal chord, then I'm hoping you're analyzing that in the new key, and that the pivot chord, you back up one chord to find that. And you didn't have to analyze, I don't think, all of the non-chord tones that I did in the music, but did you get a 6 for this chord, and did you get a pivot of 4 becoming 3? This is where the majority of points in the analysis will be right here. Because we have an E flat major chord at the beginning of this measure. E flat is a 4 in B flat. It functions as a 3 in C. So I guess DC Bach knows how to use pivot chords that are 3s and some.
After the pivot, do we have to write the chords into the line, or is that just something you do?
No, you don't have to. I tend to write the analysis of the new key on a different level, on a different line, but you don't. I'm not going to be a stickler about that. So, yeah. Did you show the new key at the pivot chord? You've got to mark the new key, otherwise it's a point or so off. That's why I have the little lowercase c there, C minor. Did you get that this chord was 2/2 diminish 6/5? And going on to the last one, I'm not going to play the last one because it's a little more difficult and I don't want, I'll spare you my tinkering around. Anyways, does the last one modulate? No. Stays in the key of B flat major the whole way. You notice I have a few secondary chords. How do I analyze chords with B naturals in them if I'm in B flat major? Well, one of them is a 7/6 of 2, another one is a 5/6 of 2. But because the cadence is still in B flat major, we've got a half cadence here in B flat major. I have not shifted keys or modulated. So I'm not going to force a pivot chord somewhere in there and try to analyze the rest of it in a different key. It's actually easier just to leave it in this key because the cadence indicates we stayed in the same key and analyze those two chromatic chords as secondary chords. Secondary chords. Should we go to the part writing? Is that the last section? Mine is from a different book, but I hope you'll be able to see my answers. This modulates from G major to A minor. And you might think that, well, Dr. Hopkinson, isn't one of the signals when you go from G major to A minor, isn't one of them F natural? And you would be right, yes. just a fleeting secondary chord to get you to this one at the end of the first measure. The main signal that you want to look for here is G sharp. Because from this point on, we have G sharps running to the end. Generally, when you have a modulation in a passage like this, the modulation is generally kind of relatively centrally located. It's usually not in the very first measure. It could be in the second to last measure, but it's more centrally located.
I did the pivot chord 2 chords later, and it was still a 2 to a 1. Cause
Yep.
is that did I get points taken off for that?
Let's see here. So then how would you, let's see.
Because the G sharp in the last chord in the second measure, that was what I used, because
Yeah.
I didn't realize the G sharp was there, so I still had a 2 over a 1.
So did you analyze this beat here as a 7 diminished 6 of a 2?
I did not get, I just had a 2, 6 in the top, or just a 2 in the top. Because it's just an A. Well, I guess there's, no.
Yeah, the fact that, I'm just wondering how you analyze this chord here, because it's asking for a G sharp.
I did have a G sharp BD, I just didn't think to analyze it that far.
You know, I think if you went ahead and you analyzed this as a 7 diminished 6 of 2, and then you have the pivot chord here, 2 becoming 1, I think I would look at that and probably say, you know, that makes sense to me, I would give you some good credit for that.
Okay.
Yeah. What does my, towards the end here, what does this IC mean? Does that stand for ice cream? Yeah, sometimes, and again, remember when you get to the part writing on the test, the cadence, try not to lose like 1,000 points right at the cadence when you part write it. Sometimes I use an incomplete 5/7 so that I can end up with smoother part writing and a complete tonic at the end. What happens if you want to use an incomplete 5/7? What do you leave out and what do you double? We talked about that last semester. Leave out the fifth of the 5/7 and double the root. So in this key of A minor, I have 2 E's. I double the root down there. I have a third G sharp, and then I have a 7th, a D. And notice that especially at the cadence where the tendency tones seem to be everywhere, pay attention. I've got T of my key, G sharp, and an outer voice, so it goes up. And the 7th of the chord, the D, has to come down my step. Let me freeze this on the screen. If I can play this, you can hear how it goes. Starting in G major. That's a hard one to reach. Okay, then we have all A minor. The 5/7. If I tried to make it complete, then I would probably end up having to end up with an incomplete tonic chord, which is still okay. But you gotta make sure you at least obey the tendency tones. You see how this chord, the 5/4/2/4, has 2 tendency tones as well? One of which was taken care of for you in the bass. And this 5/6/5 has a couple tendency tones, one of which was taken care of for you in the bass. Yeah, if you can remember, you know, sometimes after you're done, if you've got your analysis, just look, where do I have a 7th chord? There's 1, 5/4/2, 5/6/5, 5/7. Just look for all your 7th chords and then check yourself. Did I lower or, did I take the 7th of the chord down by step? That can help save a lot of part writing. Any last minute questions before we go? I think if you are, it would just be incidentally, I wouldn't like specifically ask you for them, but like you might need to in a passage, just, but I won't ask you to label them, I don't think we have any of that. Good, other questions? Okay, come see me or see Micah if you're concerned about something between now and Wednesday's test. And that's all the time we have for today.
I just remember on that first event, I like, no, literally, I went to talk to him the entire time. Like, it's so weird, I don't remember it. I don't remember it being an
I don't, yeah.